Today on Conversations with Neighbours, we're joined by someone whose work touches thousands of lives across York Region. Gillian Freeman is the Executive Director of Victim Services of York Region, an organization that's there in the moments most of us hope we'll never face. From domestic violence and human trafficking to sudden loss and mental health crisis, their team provides immediate crisis response, advocacy, and a path forward for those affected by crime and tragic circumstances. In 2024 alone, Victim Services supported over 19,000 people, with more than 76% of cases involving domestic violence. Behind every one of those numbers is a neighbor, a family member, a friend, and the care they received made all the difference. Gillian, welcome to the show. Let's start with your journey and what drives this important work every single day.
Thank you so much for inviting me here today. It's a pleasure to be with you. What drives my journey, I think you summed it up in terms of the work that we do, is being a good neighbor, really trying to make a difference in our community, to lead in our community, to assist people in their most vulnerable moments is the driving factor for our organization and why we do the vital work in our community. And
how did you get started in this field? What's your origin story on it?
Oh, my origin. We immigrated from the UK to Canada, and our family values were instilled in how thankful we were to be given entry to a country that had given us so much at a time of growth. And so I was raised with the concept of volunteering throughout my life and volunteered full-time in our summers at the local hospital and got exposed to lots of different professions. And social work was one that I took a liking to, in this capacity of helping people in difficult times and being there with them and alongside them. So that was the beginning, sort of sparked it, and then went to university and did some practicums. I started at Victim Services Appeal. Just loved that trauma crisis work in terms of the impact you can have in an immediate tragic circumstance is so powerful because of the concept of what fires together wires together, that we can unpack that immediately in hopes of it not having the same longer term impact on a human being. So I loved the concept. I loved the work that was around it that could make a difference. I don't know if you want this on film, but like a perfect example could be, let's say that there was a car accident and we're going to do a death notification, and you're going to let little Timmy, who's 7 years old, for example, tell him that there was a car accident and his mom died. We don't know what fires and wires together. So it could be the word accident. And if that's what's fired and wired together, then Timmy goes to school. And what word does he hear all the time? Oops, it's just an accident. Oh, I had an accident. And when something in a traumatic situation fires and wires, we have an automatic nervous system response. So his system would shut down, and now Timmy's not performing well in school. And when he's not performing well in school, no one really understands why or what's happening. We think maybe it's grief, but we don't realize that it might be part of the trauma connection of grief. And Timmy probably doesn't even understand how it got fired and wired together. So it's really about being mindful of how do we respond in that immediate crisis so that things don't fire and wire together. We all have, for example, a song that can make us super happy, or a song that can make us super sad. And we didn't cognitively think to ourselves, hey, every time this song plays, I am going to be happy. And every time this song plays, I'm going to be sad. It doesn't work that way. So they just fired at a particular point in time in our lives that have created that connection. So it's that unpacking piece for me, that emotional cognitive processing piece. It's pretty exciting to unpack and interesting.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So you must have deep understanding of one, mind and body connection, right? This is a topic that I've been more and more interested, just because, just every day, stress that builds up within the nervous system. And I was wondering why I was getting anxious, but it's because essentially I had no release. I didn't understand the nervous system at all. I was just piling everything on, which has led me to explore this a bit more. Mm-hmm. So I guess in your field of work, you have to have a deep understanding of that. You just kind of touched on that, where, a trauma can then be stored like within the body, and then it can show up in other elements of life, and people can be not even aware of it, right? They can blanket over themselves like, yeah, no, I feel fine, but like there's like all these inner triggers that are like embedded in the body,
that no one cognitively associated, right? The best way I can give it, most people have either been in a car accident or had a speeding ticket, and you will never drive past the place where you had a speeding ticket and not remember to slow down. And you will never drive past the place that you had a car accident and not remember that this is the place that had a car accident. Some people might go as far as never driving on the street where they had a car accident. So if you can imagine that's for a speeding ticket, it's always remembered, or car accident. Now imagine a domestic violence incident where it's in your home and your everyday existence is part of an environment that would have triggers. We call them activators because trigger could be an activated word.
Yep.
It have activators to cause our autonomic nervous system to automatically respond in that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn mode, right? So how do we manage that piece for people who inevitably are usually going to be in that same home or are or their workplace or an environment that we can't necessarily always take away from them.
Yeah, if you kind of think of like the spectrum of that, like a speeding ticket is like a 0.5 and then something domestic is way up the scale of it. Yeah. So what type of practices or methods for someone, like I'm just thinking of that example where it's like, I'm like, just, you got to move, right? But you can't just be like, that's easier said than done, right? So you have to be able to exist in that environment where something traumatic happened. What are kind of the best practices to deal with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm going to give you probably the worst scale example. So a homicide, and dad kills mom. Dad's incarcerated, mom's alive, mom's deceased, and the child who was present in the home at the time is alive, and the next of kin need to move into the home. So child's been out of the home for a bit because it was a crime scene, and now we're letting this child come back in. The child's fairly young. So what we do is we make sure that we're there when the child is entering back into that residence. We put gifts in every single room of that home. So what you want to do is when you're returning to an environment where there's trauma is you want to, if you can be cognitively focused, as opposed to the ability to ruminate or have free thought, so that we're really forcing the neurons to fire as opposed to allowing emotions. So that you've got to go in each room and your task is to find where the gift is hidden. So it's a very cognitively focused task in that room. So then we've taken away that autonomic nervous system and we've immediately replaced it with a cognitive task and a new cognitive memory. Then they open up the gift and it's something that they're excited to have. And now we've created a positive physiological response in this room that might have held negative physiological responses. So it's for children in specific, it's really about reclaiming that space in a new way so that we're creating new memories in relation to it. That's just like the easy, immediate entry point. Most people with trauma along those lines, it's not that, and it's longer term where you're trying to unpack what is associated. But for us, because it's crisis, we're really looking at that very immediate, how do we survive in this environment right now? How do we reclaim it? How do we acknowledge it? So it's really having some of those adults having conversations with, is there a particular room that you're avoiding because of what occurred? And what is it about that room? And what can we do in relation to that room? So adults, you can have more conversations around it and give more tips about how to make sure that our cognitive brain is being activated throughout that process, as opposed to allowing that free flow of thought, which then allows stress and anxiety to go through.
That's an incredible thing with that kid to do that, right? It's so, like, as you're saying, I'm like, that's so smart, right? Not just letting them, whatever they're feeling, whether it's a thought come and trigger the body or a feeling in the body, trigger thoughts, do that too, and kind of like rewire it. And I assume that it's going to be more effective from the kid. Is it because there's more plasticity in like a younger person to be able to do that. Where then I think of an adult where they're kind of more callous. So it's like a more ongoing process that they would have to kind of go through to kind of solve that same underlying thing, that same trauma.
Yeah, I think that with children, I think there's multiple layers in terms of why it might be a little bit different, right? If we tell a child to go search for a gift, they're going to do it. If you tell an adult to search for a gift, they can say, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Right? But children are a little bit more amenable to processes and a little bit more amenable to what we're going to say to them. And they don't always know how to process what's occurred for them, right? So most children, if an incident occurs, they think that they caused it. There's that amazing VW ad where the kid's in the Star Wars costume and he's trying to make the car make a sound and the parents do the click, click from inside and the kid's like, I did it. That's normally a young children's brain. So when something happens, we think like if our parents get divorced, it's my fault, or dad gets in a car accident, it's my collision, it's my fault, or if something occurs, we tend to make it our fault. That continues as an adult, that we do the same thing as adults. We tend to internalize and personalize most things that occur. For children, they're not quite aware that they've done that. But if you give them a new dialogue or a new narrative and practice with them about how to use that narrative, it's a little bit more easier than adults who sort of question and say, but I know that's not true, or
have the blockers up on it.
Yeah.
Like, so if someone listening and they don't know Victim Services of York Region, in like simple terms, kind of who are you and what do you do, right? I think that we've touched on some inner workings of it, but I want like for the listeners to, if they haven't heard of the organization, what is kind of the core existence?
So as you mentioned, we work in partnership with the police and fire services to provide 24-hour crisis intervention support to persons victimized by crime or tragic circumstance. We have several programs. We have our on-scene response program. So we'll attend a home, hospital, crime scene, or police station 24/7 in response to an incident, whether it's, as you mentioned, a domestic violence, sexual assault, human trafficking. We have our telephone crisis response. So if someone doesn't actually want you to come out at nighttime, let's say there's a domestic violence incident, it's 2 a.m, they want to just tuck their wee ones in, they can still speak to us on the phone live and say, okay, my child's waking up tomorrow morning. How do I explain what's happened, what's going to happen in the court? Sort of just get immediate, let's see if we can regulate right now. Let's help you focus and recenter and have a game plan. So that's our telephone crisis response program. We have a suicide and homicide bereavement support group. It's a 10-week program. They can ring our office to ask to be a participant of it. What's unique about that is there's different grief programs, but most of them are about the relationship of the deceased. So it's, death of a spouse, death of a child, but there's specific traumatic pieces around suicide and around homicide. An interesting statistic, 100% of our participants in our suicide bereavement support group, there's at least multiple people who have no clue how their loved one died. And that's still the stigma associated with suicide. We have our Youth Empowering Youth program where youth can get volunteer hours and be part of an online platform that talks about issues impacting youth, whether it's bullying, domestic violence, healthy relationships. So that's an online platform that our youth program lead. We have a volunteer program where if you're interested in being involved and attending on scene or doing telephone response, you can. You get vetted, obviously, to make sure that that's a skill set that would work with us, and extensive training. And you always go out with a social worker. And lastly, we have the Victim Quick Response Program, which is Ministry of Community and Social Services program that provides financial assistance as a stopgap measure. So if there's been an incident, you need to get to the hospital and you don't have transportation, we can provide you with transportation to get to the hospital. It's
a lot of coverage, obviously a lot of great work. I guess there's got to be a lot of volunteer support to help make all that happen. Mm-hmm. Talk about, we're in a rising population, right? So I would assume that with rising population, kind of these incidents will continue to rise too, just based off of numbers. Talk about the challenges of meeting like the rise of cases, incidents, and just that, touch on that.
It's a significant challenge, obviously, as our population continues to grow, so does crime, as we know. and funding. If anyone who's familiar with the not-for-profit sector, funding sources don't often increase year after year to compensate for that or take that into consideration. So the York region in specific is the lowest funded victim services site in the GTA, actually. So we struggle to meet basic needs. We have to triage. There's some cases where we have to determine what level of support, or in some situations refer out for other supports that may not be 24/7, which is unfortunate. It breaks our heart internally. And we are certainly considered part of an emergency first response team. When the world closed during COVID, we didn't. Right? Unfortunately, the hotels closed and shelters couldn't operate for valid reasons because there was no way to contain COVID. We understand that, but we were still going out for DV cases and trying to provide support, and they were still in the home, and they weren't having accused persons incarcerated at the time. So there was lots of challenges. We had women ringing saying, somebody posted a picture of me playing in the park when they said the park was closed, but if I go to the park, that's safer than me being at home with my children.
Yeah. Wow.
Right? So I know in the not-for-profit sector, it's a consistent issue in terms of funding, but victim services in particular, we genuinely struggle to meet the basic needs of every client. How
do we get more funding to you? Like, is it to the government? Is it to the public? Like, is it a mixture of both? Like, what is, the line to more funding to kind of get the support that is needed for the service that you're offering?
I believe it's a tiered response also. I'm happy to say Victim Services has revived our lip sync battles. It's been a while, pre-COVID, where we're hosting our own fundraiser. Very lucky to do. It's pretty fun for anyone who's keen or interested to sponsor or get tickets for. So there's that event. And then there's also, I guess, government advocacy that we need to be engaged in that sort of says, let's make sure that it's equitable amongst other services in the GTA, which our board of directors is looking at addressing. As for the lip sync battle, it's occurring on September 25th. It's at Aurora Town Square. It's, I don't know if you've ever seen the lip sync battle on the television.
Yeah, Tom Holland.
Yeah, yes.
Rihanna.
It is the most fascinating. We get some fantastic local community minded human beings who are artistic and put on a phenomenal show. So it's really entertaining. It's not your typical, let's sit at dinner and chat with each other. You're entertained for the evening, which is fantastic. There's still some food. There's still opportunities to network, but there's a show that's engaging and witty and clever and so fun.
Yeah, I'm excited. Like at the office, we've had some meetings for the event. And so I've kind of been around it. I know Lynette's more involved on the planning part of it. I can already tell this will be like one of these events locally that is the go-to event. I already know it. This will be kind of like the breakout one where it gets on everyone's map, and then it will definitely compound over the years. I know it's in the back of my head that I'm gonna be a lip syncer
performer. I love it.
Probably next year. I already know what song too.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
I love it.
So I'm excited for that. It's going to be a great event. We'll make sure that we'll put all the details for anyone that is interested in participating or sponsoring in the show notes, so it's very clear for them. I would say get your tickets, but it's going to be so hard. It's going to sell out quickly.
They're concerned about how fast it's selling out. There's still opportunities for sponsorship. If I could take a minute just to already thank those that have confirmed. We've got Magna International, Peter Van Schaik, Torvan Contracting Limited, Basel Developments, the Regional Municipality of York are some of our presenting sponsors. So we're very grateful for them. But there are definitely more. And we're happy to say York Regional Police is supporting us. Chief McSween is performing and is going to be a judge. So that's fantastic.
I love it. And I'll be there 100%. And I'm really, really excited for it. So, as these kind of signature events get going and, try to get more funding too, like what do you see in the future for the next 5 years for the organization, goals, plans? When you try to put a vision or goal out there into the future, what are you hoping for?
I find that question just a wee bit challenging in a sense because we're operating in a deficit. So we need to raise $500,000 just to manage year after year. Like our general operating budget is around $500,000 to $600,000 in deficit. It needs to be fundraised. And we're hoping that the government can just fill that gap and fundraising could go to extra programs and services. And some of the extra programs and services include if there's a sexual assault, your clothes are taken as evidence. We want to make sure that every female walks out of that hospital with a tracksuit and some clothes or our human trafficking case. I remember an officer, we give them a little case that's got their hygiene products because they haven't had control over anything in their lives for a long time. Yeah, so hygiene products, really comfy clothes and some snacks. And we had one woman who was 23 and she noticed a chocolate bar and she got giddy like a 13-year-old. And the officer turned around with tears in their eyes and they said, I'm never going to be around when they open another one of these boxes. Like, it breaks my heart that somebody who's been through all this is so excited about a chocolate bar. So those are some of the extras that we try to raise as well. Got
to get to that break-even point first because you said you're at the deficit, and then you can kind of look for it on top of that. Is it, and maybe it's both, is it a provincial thing? Is it a federal thing? Is it a mixture of both? Like, I'm just thinking to myself, like listening to you, I'm like, who do we need to get a hold of and kind of show them this and be like, let's get going?
Yeah. Again, I think provincially is who our main funding source is. MCCSS is the main funding source. We would hope that the region could continue to support this because it's their constituents. And then some federal dollars definitely need to be devoted to. And that's just core services, not the extras, right? I didn't mention, but we have Project Angel, which we sort of kind of keep it a little bit on the down low. It's the automated notification GPS emergency locator. So it's an alarm that a woman can depress, or a man, if they're at high risk of experiencing a domestic violence. We only have 10 for the region. They're quite expensive. And they're not your typical alarms where it doesn't go to an alarm company. It goes to Northern 911. So when they depress it, it has voice activation. So a 911 operator will come on and say, please fire ambulance. At the same time, the 911 operator screen automatically pops up with all the details they need to know. So a GPS tracker, who the victim is, who the perpetrator is, are there children that we need to be aware of, where do they live, charges, all sorts of information. So we had a woman activate it. She saw the accused who should not have been anywhere near her, activated, 911 came, police managed to intervene before anything happened. So only in 10 in the region, you're looking at homicides waiting to occur.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, and that's a completely fundraised program. There's no government funding for it. So there's programs that are just not even core services that we're talking about, right? Yeah. So we definitely need to push the envelope on all levels. Yeah.
When did the organization start? Because it's like so obvious now how important it is, right? My dad was a firefighter in Central York for over 30 years. And, if I think of fire and I think of police, right, they're going on scene, but they're not there for like what your work is doing. Mm-hmm. So when did the organization begin and start implementing this?
Yeah, good question. In 1998 is when we got our articles patent, but then there was the process of getting a board of directors, applying for funding. So the organization opened its doors sometime in 99, as I understand it. I joined in 2002, so a few years later. And it was fairly small when it first began. It actually grew out of an inquest, the Arlene May Randy Isles inquest. And at the time, there were only 3 victim services sites in the province, Victim Services Appeal being one, and I worked in Peel at the time. So one of our board members was a chief coroner for the coroner's office and presented it at the inquest. And there was unanimous. The inquest said, absolutely, people should have access 24/7 to a social worker that's not a police, that they can have this warm, soft human being to break down in front of. Mm-hmm. And we see it all the time with clients. When an officer is asking you questions, you're nervous, you're a little bit uptight, and you're holding your emotions in so you can get the answers. And the minute that uniform walks away, and the uniform officers in New York are fantastic and kind, and they're trying to be gentle, but just by nature of it, we all get nervous. You see a police car, you're all nervous.
I'm like, not doing anything wrong.
Yes,
but it's like...
exactly. It's that autonomic nervous system. We've been raised to sort of be on high alert, like a little bit more hypervigilant. And then, when they walk away, that's when they have that, the person, your breakdown happens. You breathe, and then a wave of emotions hit, and they need someone at that moment where everything's just de-escalated, and you have a headache because you didn't even think about drinking or eating or any of those things, and you just fall apart.
Yeah.
And everyone needs a moment to fall apart after something traumatic.
Yeah, just like the adrenaline crash, like depleting through it. And it's just like, and then it's like a wave that's coming over, and having someone there that is trained and knows what to do and how to talk to you. And
how to stop that brain from ruminating when you leave, right? And I assume most people have that moment where you've had a quarrel or a struggle in some way, and you go home and you're thinking about it again. And that coulda, shoulda, woulda.
Yeah.
With every incident, people are left with that. They're left with, if I couldn't have done this or I shouldn't have done this. Even simple car accidents. Mm-hmm. I wish I hadn't asked them to go to the shop to get the milk. Why didn't I go? Or why didn't I wait 30 minutes? Like just simple, really small things. So imagine on bigger scales, the self-blame and the rumination that goes on about thinking about what we could have done and might have done, and how much, when you talk about that anxiety or how that body, a physiological response on that body that naturally will have, an emotional and cognitive impact as well, that we don't really pay attention to.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you so much for all the work and your organization is doing. Everyone go get tickets for Lip Sync Battle. Probably sold out, but do your best. But also support by sponsoring. And thanks again.
Great. They can also make donations online at Canada House.
Get donations in.
Perfect.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.